Who are you really? You have been with yourself your entire life. Through every experience, every memory, every thought, there has been a sense of being you, a continuous self that witnesses it all. But what exactly is this self? When you look for it, really look, what do you find? Neuroscience says there is no central place in the brain where you reside. Philosophy has struggled for millennia to pin down personal identity. Buddhism has taught for 2,500 years that the self is an illusion, a useful fiction the mind constructs. And quantum mechanics, with its observer dependent reality, raises questions about what an observer even is. Are you a thing or a process? A noun or a verb? Are you the same person you were 10 years ago, or yesterday, or even a moment ago? Welcome back to the Conscious Observer. Today we turn the lens inward and ask, who are you really? An ancient thought experiment illuminates the puzzle. The ship of Theseus was kept in Athens as a memorial. Over centuries, decaying planks were replaced with new wood. Eventually, every original piece was gone. Was it still the same ship? Some say yes. Continuity of form preserved identity. Others say no, the original ship slowly ceased to exist. Now consider yourself. Every atom in your body is replaced over approximately 7 years. Your cells die and regenerate. Your neurons rewire constantly. The matter that made up the 5-year-old you is long gone, scattered across the planet. Yet you feel like the same person. What makes you you, if not your physical substance? Is it memory? But memories are reconstructed, distorted, sometimes fabricated. Is it personality? But personalities change dramatically over a lifetime. Whatever the self is, it is not simple. Neuroscience has searched for the self in the brain and found only processes. There's no single location where you are, no homunculus sitting in a control room watching screens and pulling levers. Instead, there are networks. A default mode network active during self-reflection, regions for autobiographical memory, areas processing body ownership. These networks coordinate but are distributed. Damage to certain regions changes personality, destroys memory, or creates bizarre conditions like alien hand syndrome, where a limb acts against conscious will. Split brain patients, whose two hemispheres are surgically separated, sometimes behave as if two selves inhabit one body. The more we study the brain, the more the unified self dissolves into a committee, a coalition of processes that create the illusion of singularity. The self is less an entity than an emergent phenomenon, a story the brain tells itself about itself. Psychologists speak of the narrative self, the ongoing story you construct about who you are. This story weaves together memories, personality traits, values, and goals into a coherent protagonist. You are the hero of your life's movie, and the narrative self is the character you play. But this narrative is heavily edited. Memory research shows that we remember poorly and confabulate constantly. We rewrite our past to fit our present self-image. We emphasize certain events and forget others. The story you tell about yourself at 50 is radically different from the story you told at 20, even about the same events. This is not deception, it is how minds work. The narrative self is a useful fiction, a way of organizing experience that serves survival and social function. You are, in a sense, a story you tell yourself, and that story keeps changing. Contemplative traditions have long recognized the constructed nature of self. In Buddhism, the concept of anatta, or non-self, is central. The Buddha taught that what we call self is actually 5 aggregates: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. None of these is a permanent self. All are in constant flux. Clinging to the illusion of a fixed self causes suffering. Liberation comes from seeing through the illusion. Hindu philosophy offers the concept of Atman, often translated as soul or true self, which is ultimately identical with Brahman, the universal consciousness. The individual self is a wave in the ocean, temporarily distinct but never truly separate. Different metaphysics, but a shared insight. The everyday ego self is not what it appears. There is either no self or only one self, depending on tradition. Either way, the sense of being a separate, permanent individual is mistaken. Throughout this series, we have talked about the observer in quantum mechanics, but we have never asked, what is an observer? The standard answer is that an observer is any measuring device, any system that records information. But this functional definition avoids the deeper question. When you observe an experiment, what exactly is doing the observing? If the self is an illusion, a constructed narrative, a bundle of processes with no fixed center, then what collapses the wave function? Some physicists and philosophers have suggested that consciousness itself is the observer, not the ego self we identify with daily, but awareness itself, prior to any content or construction. This pure awareness might be what participates in quantum events. The observer is not the story you tell about yourself. It is the silent witness that watches the story unfold. Philosophers distinguish between synchronic identity, what makes you you at a given moment, and diachronic identity, what makes you the same person over time. Derek Parfit famously argued that there is no deep fact about personal identity. What matters for survival is psychological continuity, memory connections, personality similarities, the chain linking past to present. But this continuity admits of degrees. You are strongly connected to yesterday's self, weakly to the child you were. There is no sharp line, no essence that either persists or does not. Parfit concluded that personal identity is not what matters. What matters is continuation of the things we care about, experiences, relationships, projects. Whether these belong to the same self in some metaphysical sense is a question without a determinate answer. You are a process, not a thing, and processes do not have sharp boundaries. The many worlds interpretation, which we explored earlier, fragments personal identity further. Every quantum event splits you into multiple copies. Which one is the real you? The answer, we said, is all of them and none. The branching tree of selves undermines the notion of a single continuous identity threading through time. You are never one person. You are a vast population of diverging histories, sharing a common past but headed toward radically different futures. This might seem disturbing, but consider, you already accept that past selves are not identical to your present self. Many worlds just multiplies future selves as well. The self becomes a four-dimensional structure in the branching multiverse, not a point but a tree. Identity is a matter of perspective, a section cut through the branches. The feeling of being a single self is a view from inside one branch, unaware of the others. If the self is an illusion, what happens when you see through it? Meditators report experiences of ego dissolution, moments when the sense of being a separate self vanishes while awareness remains. These experiences are often described as profound, liberating, even blissful. Without the self, there is no one to suffer, no one to defend, no one to aggrandize. There is simply experience, unowned and free. Some interpret this as contact with a deeper reality, the pure awareness that underlies all experience. Others see it as a neurological phenomenon, temporary deactivation of the default mode network. Either way, the experience suggests that the self is not necessary for consciousness. You can be aware without being someone. The observer can observe without a constructed identity claiming ownership. This is perhaps the deepest meaning of the observer effect. Not that a self observes reality, but that reality observes itself through the opening we call awareness. We began with a simple question: who are you? We end with the recognition that there may be no simple answer. You are not your atoms. They are constantly replaced. You are not your memories. They are unreliable reconstructions. You are not your narrative. It keeps changing. You are not a fixed thing, but a dynamic process, a pattern that maintains itself through time while never staying the same. And yet, you are here, aware, reading these words, asking these questions. Whatever the self is, it is capable of wonder. It can contemplate its own nature and find mystery. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps the question is more important than any answer. In our next episode, we ask the question that haunts everyone eventually. What happens when this process ends? What does consciousness have to do with death? And is there any sense in which you might continue? Until then, remember, you are the universe asking who it is. Keep observing.